Hi, this is Margo. This is Friday, January 20th, 2017. I'm doing part 5 on the spike, how our lives are changing with technology. This is actually a redo. I did the show on Wednesday, but somehow Blog Talk didn't get it processed, and I've tried to get technical support, and no one's really helping me. So I decided to just redo the show. If anyone wants to call in and talk about technology and how it's changing their lives, not for the better, the call-in number is 845-262-0773. And I'm reading from a book called The Spike, How Our Lives Are Being Transformed by Rapidly Advancing Technologies. It was written by Damien Broderick, who was an Australian science fiction writer, but he was a genius at putting together the dots with technology. He was a futurist. He's still alive as far as I know. This book was published in 2001. And so I think for us to understand where we are with all of this technology and how it's racing out of control, we have to understand where we came from. And so this is why I'm doing this series. I think this is the single most important thing that we need to focus on besides runaway climate change, rapid runaway climate change, and our more than likely extinction in our lifetimes here. And so we need to, go deep within and find spiritual answers to these issues and to these situations that we were confronted with, because we are spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings having an experience here. We are all part of the God consciousness. And the things that are wrong with the world, it's not going to be fixed by the world. It's going to be fixed spiritually, however that happens. So I suggest people get right with God and Jesus and before it's too late, because we're running out of time. And I feel very urgent about this. Anyway, I'm going to pick up where I left off. Before I get started, though, my name's Margo. I'm a hypnotist, holistic life coach, mind-body fitness coach, and spiritual healer. My website is margoshealingcorner.com, and I have a YouTube channel, Margo's Healing Corner. And for the last year or so, I've been focusing my attention on removing alien and energetic implants from people and getting them realigned with their divine connection, and doing a lot of energetic healing. I do all different kinds of hypnosis. I work worldwide, either on the phone or on Skype. So check out my website if you're interested. And my YouTube channel, I've got a lot of videos up there, a lot of instructional videos that you might like. I also interview interesting people that come across my path. So I put up new videos all the time. So I'm going to pick up where I left off, and it's called Tracking the Trend. And remember, this is from Damien Broderick's book, The Spike. 40 years ago, I learned about the trend curves that seemed to be dragging us inexorably into some kind of spike from a popular science article by an engineer, the late G. Harry Stein. That's spelled S-T-I-N-E. Under the pen name Lee Corey, Stein also wrote rather stolid science fiction, but he made his living as an innovations promoter, managing scientific research. No laboratory drone. He saw himself as a synthesis of cutting-edge ideas and practices. He subsequently published books promoting the concept of solar power satellites to beam us down cheap electricity in microwave form. His 1961 article was a deliberately provocative slap at his fellow speculative writers, usually regarded by sober citizens as lunatic technophiles. Stein denounced these specialist dreamers and extrapolators for their stick-in-the-mud conservatism. "Look at the curves," Stein cried in effect. "What's wrong with you? Are you all blind?" A year later, in the wonderful nonfiction book Profiles of the Future, Arthur C. Clarke diagnosed the same defect as failure of nerve and coupled it with another crime, failure of imagination. Stein was determined to fall victim to neither failing. The trends were going asymptotic, he pointed out. That means to infinity. When you're tracking the patterns formed in the 20th and 21st centuries by data on available energy or transport speed or numbers of people in a world afflicted with unchecked overpopulation, you can get some hair-raising and very weird results. Too weird to be true. In 1973, sociologist FM 2030 predicted faxes, satellite cell phones, and something like the Internet, good going, together with the feasible but impossibly expensive hypersonic planes projected for the late 1980s that would zip you anywhere on the planet in less than 40 minutes, not to mention the wildly extravagant hope that by 1985 we will be able to postpone aging in a dramatic way and onto the truly fatuous. The use of artificial moons or satellites to control tides and floods. Curves are tricky things to interpret realistically. And I'm going to make an interjection there. If we can believe what's come out of the secret space program, we've already reached all of that and more, much more. And not in the secret space program, but all the other stuff like faxes, satellite cell phones, internet, hypersonic planes, etc., we're already using those. That's all a done deal. Continuing. If you really understand trend curves, Stein wrote with a perfect poker face in 1961, you can extrapolate them into the future and discover some baffling things. The speed trend curve alone predicts that manned vehicles will be able to achieve near infinite speeds by 1982. Perhaps that seemed safe enough back then, 2 decades away. Anything could happen in 20 years. Perhaps the horse would talk. To tell the truth, Stein was concerned that this prediction might be too conservative. It might be sooner, but the curve becomes asymptotic by 1982. You probably noticed that this did not happen except on the television and movie screens when starships routinely travel at warp speed or burn through wormholes from one side of the galaxy to the other. It's quite disappointing. So where was the flaw in Stein's case? Surely it wasn't simply that we didn't yet know how to do such things. Science keeps learning new and astonishing things about the world. We bump into discontinuities and have to reformulate our theories, or the theories lead us into novel facts. Sociologists of science, as everyone now knows due to the terms misappropriation by New Agers, dubbed these major shifts paradigm changes. Stein was expecting some very big paradigm changes. Led astray by his transport speed trend, he had noted, if this is really the case, A true scientific breakthrough of major importance must be in the offing in the next 20 years. But how could such an infinitely fast vehicle be propelled? Look, say the trend curve had got a little confused, mistaking Newtonian physics for the more up-to-date Einsteinian variety. Perhaps we would settle for close to the speed of light, the best one can hope for in a universe where nothing material can go faster than light, but that costs a lot. It takes plenty of propellant. Pushing a 100-ton starship up to 99.99% of the speed of light, as close to infinite speed as we're likely to reach any time soon, you have to pump in so much energy that the ship is a kinetic bomb carrying more than 220 million megatons locked up in its inertial mass. Energy equals mass, remember, and that's how much brute energy it takes to get 100 tons moving that fast. Luckily, explained Stein, that's okay. The trend curve for controllable energy is rising rapidly. By 1981, this trend curve shows that a single man will have available under his control the amount of energy equivalent to that generated by the entire sun. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, I don't think so. It would have taken more than a genuine cold fusion breakthrough to bring that one off. It would have taken a tame black hole in your tank. I'm going to pause there. Of course, Damien Broderick was not considering quantum physics and quantum computing, which is what we have now. Okay, continuing. If this goes on, Stein's trend curves, in other words, were misleading. They were just what they seemed to be, idle curves linking 4 or 5 quite disparate historical trajectories. Athletes and swimmers have surpassed previous records every year on the dot as they eat better and train more cunningly, and indeed come into the world as bouncing world beaters, having enjoyed optimum medically guided conditions in the womb. It doesn't mean that someday an Olympic-class runner will smash the 10th of a second mile record set an instant earlier by her trainer-sponsored rival. Does this splash of cold water mean that the spike, the technological singularity up there in the mid-21st century, is nothing better than a mirage? Not at all. It wasn't sheer fantasy Stein was retailing after all, just a rather trusting or wickedly goading application of the principle, if this goes on. Plenty of things are going on and will not stop before humankind or our world are changed forever. Standard forecast. In a tiptoeing sequel to his original article published in 1986, Stein avoided any mention of his most preposterous trends and settled for merely utopian expectations. We can't close the Pandora's box of technology. Technology is never forgotten. It's only replaced by better technology. Because we can't put the thermonuclear bomb, recombinant DNA, and a host of other technological wonders back into Pandora's box and forget them. We must deal with them. It's not easy. He added, 100 years from now, barring an incredible combination of bad luck and poor management, people everywhere will be many, rich, and largely in control of the forces of nature. I've got faith in the capabilities of human beings. We'll make it. Therefore, we must learn how to be rich and handle abundance because we've never had to do it before. Probably this less extravagant forecast would raise no eyebrows among comparatively conservative soothsayers. In 1996, a team from British Telecommunications made its futurological report for the period to 2020. The average Western lifespan by that date would be a century. Self-programming computers were expected as early as 2005, as was full voice interaction with machines. AIs emulating the human brain might exist by 2016. And by the same date, genetic links to all diseases will have been mapped from the decoded DNA template, so everyone will carry an individual genome record wired into a personal health card. These projections were modest, befitting a vast corporate institution like BT. Among more adventurous observers, it has been forecast that the multi-billion-dollar international Human Genome Project might turn up a cure for death itself, if mortality turns out to be governed by a tractable number of genes. How likely is that? Death, after all, results from many converging factors: genetic trade-offs, oxidative stress from metabolism itself, accumulated physical damage from an abrasive outside world. Still, University of Michigan gerontologist Richard Miller was cited in 2000 as declaring that senescence, or aging, is a single, fairly tightly controlled process that has a relatively small number of genes timing it. In June 2000, the private corporations Celera and Hugo, as the project is known, jointly announced the completed initial map of the sequence of human DNA, along with the genetic instruction sets of several lesser creatures, for purposes of comparison. Reading the cookbook is not the same as knowing how to make the cake, granted, but it is the crucial first step to changing the recipe. Cynthia Kenyon, Herbert Boyer, Distinguished Professor of Biochemistry and Biophysics at the University of California, San Francisco, has reported that the lifespan of a kind of nematode worm, the C. elegans, had been increased manifold just by mutating several genes that control the creature's rate of metabolism. This is a version of a trick they can induce themselves during lean times, putting themselves into a sluggish state of arrest known as DAUR, D-A-U-E-R. The standard maturation signal gene, DAF2, is switched off during the emergency, allowing the expression of another gene, DAF16, that extends sleepy lifespan. Kenyon modified DAF2, creating a longer-lived, vigorous worm. C. elegans are simple critters with just 959 body cells compared to the 100 trillion, or 10 to the 14, we are made from, although those 100 trillion comprise only 254 different cell types. But it's an extraordinary proof of what is possible. Early in the 21st century, we will know how to locate similar genes in humans. DAF16 resembles mammalian HNF3 genes. How to edit them, perhaps how to switch them on and off, or defer and moderate their influence. The worms can do it themselves just by ignoring their environment. In 1999, Kenyon and a colleague announced in Nature that simply depriving the creatures of genes for the senses that provide feedback from their surroundings yielded a 50% increase in lifespan. Even more remarkable, in September 2000, science announced that researchers at Emory University and biopharmaceutical company Eukaryon Inc. had boosted C. elegans' lifespan by the same amount just by adding synthetic versions of two enzymes, superoxide dismutase and catalase, which combat oxidative stress. Is immortality around the corner? Defeating death? Endless youth? Have we taken leave of our senses? Just so, according to former counterculture rebel Richard Neville, now an alternative future spokesperson for the New Age. In a millennial alphabet published on January 1st, 2000, he commented sarcastically, D is for death, whose abolition by natural causes is now considered achievable, even by experts not known to be mad. Such could not be said of those actually seeking to inhabit their body forever. Are we back after all to Steins' ridiculous straight-up-the-page curves? Or are they, too, properly decoded as a hint of the spike, not totally ridiculous after all? Technology will certainly remedy many intractable medical conditions by allowing damaged DNA to be repaired or bypassed. Cancer, for instance, paradoxically afflicts those tissues that constantly repair themselves: colon, uterus, milk ducts, the skin on both the inside and outside of our bodies. Tumors can live forever, unlike regular tissue. It is said, one might say, the downside of immortality. Mastering the cellular repair system that goes haywire in carcinoma might be only a few short steps from drugs for longevity. Dr. Robert Weinberg, a notable and productive oncology researcher, argues that evolution and Darwinism at the gene level turn out to be the key, perhaps surprisingly. Is cancer caused by nasty things we eat or breathe, like cigarette smoke, or by viruses? Or do our tissues just lose their grip as they do when we age? All of the above. The secret of cancer is identical with the secret of life. We are fallible but brilliantly maintained organic machines controlled by a library of genes. These are both a hoard of recipes for building proteins and part of the factory that compiles them. If the recipes get scrambled, our cells cook up the wrong materials. To use Weinberg's own metaphor, we have genetic brakes and accelerators. Malignant cancer, uncontrolled disordered growth, happens when the brakes or tumor suppressors are disabled and the accelerator or growth promoters is jammed on. Proofreading systems and standard suicide genes that usually destroy corrupted cells must also fail. Cancerous cells are so rare given the vast number of proliferating cells in the body because each fatal tumor requires a series of perhaps 5 or 6 random, independent, proof copying or mutational errors. The odds of all these errors striking a single cell are very small, but over a lifetime we copy cells 10,000 trillion times. The few multiple mutants to escape correction become immortal and uncontrolled, even growing their own blood supplies. Of course, one error might make the occurrence of others 1,000 times more likely, just as having a tire blow out at a high speed can make your windshield more likely to shatter. But this is not part of a cancer blueprint, nor is environmental pollution as big a problem as you would expect. In the last 70 years, adjusting for age and cigarette smoke, cancer rates have declined. If we can persuade people to give up smoking, hard to do, at a time when the young have decided it's sexy again, cancer rates really will plummet. And I'm going to make an interjection here. This was way before Fukushima, so that's adding to the cancer rate, plus all of the beaming, the cell phone towers, the electronic prison, the Wi-Fi, all of that. So he has no clue about all of these things that have transpired, of course. So this is just from what he's just going from his knowledge base. So continuing, what of aging itself? Can we stop senescence? The same fast turnover tissues prone to tumors also produce large amounts of the enzyme collagenase, which destroys proteins that help to protect skin from wrinkling. Medicos might block the action of collagenase or modify it. Even normal eating ages us more rapidly. Cutting the dietary intake of rats, mice, and monkeys by 30% lowers their metabolism and extends lifespans by up to 40%. Late in 1999, as we saw above, it was announced that the life expectancy of one kind of lab mouse has been extended 30% without near starvation by deleting the gene P66SHC from its genetic recipe. Okay, we're out of time, and I'm not going to go over. That could have been what happened last time. So I'm not going to go over. I'm going to stop there. So we'll pick up there when we're next time on Part 6. So I hope you're enjoying this series. We need to understand where we came from. The machine is here. It is the AI that's controlling everything. And soon the beast, we will know what the beast is. I believe it is the huge machine, the huge computer that everyone will be plugged into. So I'm going to wrap up here. Everyone be safe and get right with God and Jesus. I think time is short. Pray for your forgiveness and your survival, and ask for world peace and our leaders to have clarity of mind and for our highest good. And I'll talk to you all next time. Be well. Be well and God bless. Goodbye.